I like
Yeah.
whiskey.
It's like a ninja.
I'm
kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, and
Don't get me singing that fucking song.
Yeah,
Well, that's been the theme.
It is in the theme.
Themes,
Yeah.
so I didn't watch that.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it yet.
Watch it
I
after.
will.
It's so good.
Or during.
It's time for Bourbon with Friends, the bourbon podcast that never takes itself too seriously. Pull up a chair, grab a glass, and remember, a bourbon with friends can change the world. Here we go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Bourbon with Friends. Myself, Adrian, and Martin are here to talk about whiskeys from around the world and how a bourbon or whiskey with friends can change the world. How are you guys doing?
Did you almost lose it there?
I almost fucking lost it. And it took me a second. It's been a long day of emails and communications.
I get it, dude. It's better. I mean, at least like the times that when you're not here, it's still better than when I have to do it. So.
Oh, no, it's going to be your turn on Saturday.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I got to take over. I'll practice. Don't worry. I'll practice up until then. I promise. But no, good weekend. Good. Just a real chill one for me. How about you guys?
It was good. I got to enjoy some live music on Saturday. Got to spend a lot of time with friends. It was a very relaxing weekend for me.
Oh,
Not too much to report.
Look at you back with friends once again here on a Monday.
Bottled and Bond Day, right?
Bottled and Bond Day. That is what is your guys' favorite bottled and bond bottle? I keep seeing like reels and stuff about it, and it's kind of like got me thinking about what my favorite bottled and bond is.
I hate to be biased, but
I know. I get it.
Mine.
Yeah, you get it there.
Yeah.
We talked about the Old Glory earlier, but probably Heaven Hill for me, for sure.
Oh, like yeah, that one is good. I was going to say that
JTS. JTS Brown's another good bottled and bond. I don't have any of that right now, but that's a great one.
Yeah, I know.
I do like that one.
I know Joe, our loyal and excellent producer or producer too in a lot of ways.
It's a mixture.
Yeah, he was saying that he had the Cedar Ridge bottled and bond that he quite enjoyed. And I would agree with that. That's another really good one. I would say that Heaven Hill might be it for me because it's so reliable.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the greatest thing in the world, but it's just reliable and a good bottled and bond to me. So I definitely enjoy that. So
yes.
I was trying to think, did Loch Lomond make a bottle and bond? They used to.
They did. But for them it's weird because making
transfer from
more of a Scotch doing like bottled and bond stuff, I think they did at one point do something like that, but I can't remember exactly. But we're not talking about bottled and bond, and our guests have nothing to do with that. I just wanted to ask you guys that question. But maybe they do. We'll never know. But we do want to introduce our awesome guest that we have. I'm very excited about this one today. I'm actually got their whiskey poured in my glass right here. Brian, would you like to introduce these amazing people?
Because you forgot their names already?
No, you just always do it and you're better at it.
Oh, okay. Well, there's two amazing guests that we're going to bring on, Casey and Britt from Lazy K Bar Ranch Whiskey. Lazy K Bar Whiskey.
Maybe I should have done it.
You can drop the ranch. How about that?
Okay. They're great. They have whiskey. We love it. And they're and it's based out of Montana, if I'm not mistaken, based off of the Lazy K Bar Ranch.
Nice.
That is correct.
See, I do know a little bit of history about Montana, not a ton because I forget shit all the time, but I know that part.
And you're close to them, sort of. You're closer than we are.
A long shot.
Yeah, you're closer than we are.
Well, welcome, guys. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah,
100%.
you're welcome. So you guys, it seems like you guys have a pretty unique story. You have a Montana ranch owner, a Hollywood actor, and Cole Hauser, and a whiskey industry veteran that all teamed up for this. Can you talk about how the partnership came about and then a little bit of is this how did the backgrounds influence the overall brand and the vision for the product?
Yeah. So Casey, maybe I'll take some of this. I had this idea. I mean, it actually came to me. I was kind of hiking around bird hunting here in Montana one day, and the idea came to me. To be specific, I was grouse hunting, and I was thinking to myself, why doesn't Montana have like just a great whiskey that just really encapsulates everything about the West, everything about being out here on this nice morning out bird hunting. I was like, man, and then it would be so easy. We could do this whole thing where it'd be like, all about different types of grouse and it took me, I spent the whole morning thinking about it. And then, of course, I got home and did one Google search. And it was like,
You found famous grouse.
Famous grouse.
It's going to be an intellectual property issue. Right?
A little bit, yeah.
That's kind of a big deal.
With a couple 100-year-old company, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo.
Yeah.
So, but it really kind of stuck in my mind for a long time about this idea of a whiskey that could represent the West. And so one of the other founders is a guy named David Lucian, who does own the Lazy K Bar Ranch. It's a very historic ranch, very iconic. It was actually considered to be the first, it's the oldest dude ranch west of the Mississippi. I mean, it's entertained everybody from Roosevelts to diplomats to foreign dignitaries. And the more I kind of got into the idea of the ranch just seemed to represent to me exactly what I was talking about. And so, I asked David, he and I were friends. I said, would you ever consider letting me, use the actual brand, right? Because the word brand comes from the old historic, right, of a branding iron that burns right into the leather, right? And so a Lazy K bar is just a K on its side with a bar underneath it. That is a Lazy K bar, for those who don't know. And what I liked about the idea was that, it would be a talking point, right? That if you don't know cattle speak, it'd be an engaging piece, right? With a bartender, you say, hey, how do you pronounce that, or what whiskey is that, right? And it's just very simply on the back, also burned into the leather. It just says the name, age statement, and fairly simple in its approach. So David and I had, he liked it, and we said, okay, great, let's move along with it. But life caught up with me, and Gallo asked if I would, come and run their spirits portfolio. I've been in the spirits business my whole career. I truthfully don't know anything else. And I said, well, I'm kind of a really wanting to do this whiskey project, and it's really been a focus and a passion of mine. And they said, well, we've been laying down whiskey for 10 years, and we don't know what we're going to do with it. So would you ever consider letting us be a part of that business venture? And that's how the liquid came to be into the bottle. It was really kind of towards the last little bit that actually Cole got involved. Our CEO is a guy named Dave Etter, and he called me and said, hey, do you know this guy Cole Hauser? I said, duh. I mean, everybody in Montana knows who Cole Hauser is at this point, right? I mean, and he said, well, he's dying to do a whiskey project, and he's driving around the state right now, going to different distilleries. I said, listen, you don't tell me anymore. We can't talk about this. I'm going to get sued somehow over this. And it turned out, he said, well, why don't you guys just meet up and see if the chemistry works. And so we did. We all got together, and I have to say, really, I mean, just from a personality standpoint, it fit right out of the get-go.
Nice.
I mean, Cole was as clear as he could be. You don't talk to agents, you don't talk to managers, you talk to me. That's who does my business. He's super straightforward, because that was actually kind of one of the things we were concerned about. We said, look, none of us are really dying to try to make a celebrity brand. That's not the intention there. It's just a matter of, do you think that this is a good fit? Would you be a good business partner with us? And so, here we are 14, 15 months later since we sold our first bottle, and it's been great, quite frankly. It's been a great run. Casey, what did I not fill in? Casey's an encyclopedia on the ranch. She knows everything about the ranch.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say there, obviously Britt gave the kind of play-by-play of how the brand came together. But, for me personally and for the whole group, it's been a fun project to kind of, I guess, pull on some threads and understand some of the history of the people involved, things like the ranch. Was actually, over some time, found some interesting connection points in that Cole's great-great-grandfather was actually I believe the second territorial governor of Montana back before it was a state. So he's got a lake named after him, got a dam named after him, was originally came over broke, but ended up striking gold and kind of building an empire in the mining industry, banking industry, those sorts of things. And where there's a bit of funny crossover is the winter of 1866-67 is a time called the Great Die-Up out here. About 90% of the livestock died during the winter. And it was at that moment that a local telegraph operator named Paul Van Cleve, because everybody was getting out of the cattle industry, Paul Van Cleve was able to purchase the Lazy K-Bar Ranch and kicked it off at that point. So both of these guys, Samuel T. Hauser, Cole's great-great-grandfather, and then Paul Van Cleve, were in that cattle ranching industry in those nasty winters that were to follow after that. And it took a little while, but Van Cleve ultimately, he kind of abandoned the ranching portion of it as the railroads made prices go down, and it just became much more difficult to be a cattle rancher out here. And that was when he opened the doors as a guest ranch. And like Britt said, started bringing out people like Roosevelt, big business people, dignitaries to come check out what Montana's all about. So as a brand, as we're looking both at that, that heritage of the ranch, of Cole's family in Montana, and then everything that kind of comes into the product at the end of the day, that concept of really bringing the beauty of the West, like Britt was saying, into a product really made sense, because it was ultimately what Van Cleve did with that ranch.
So, like, did you all know about the connection before you met Cole? Because that's a hell of a selling point if you would have. He says no, and you're like, well, listen, let me talk to your great grandfather real quick. He had something to do with this. That's such a cool connection.
Yeah, I don't know.
Go ahead, Casey.
I was going to say, I don't know that Britt knew previously, but it was, I think about the first time I'd met Cole, it was like, oh yeah, by the way, have you heard of that other family in Montana? And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, right.
I live an hour away from the lake,
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's such a cool connection. Like, I never use this word, and these guys know this, but that is serendipity in a little bit of ways.
Serendipity.
I don't like that word. That's why
I know
things. But that kind of is. I mean, like that to me, that's the definition of it. That's like, I mean, how perfect is that? That's so cool, man. That's such a cool rundown of that, especially with the connection, because I know that it's all of us. We know the reception to celebrity brands can not always be the most. But like, for me, when I look into a brand, because I'm interested in everything, when I look and if I see things like that, I'm like, no, this is for real. Like, this isn't just some bullshit like celebrity brand. They're invested in it. They're working on it, and there's like this cool ass connection. I'd be 100% be in on something like that. But when you can tell, it's kind of like all they did was maybe slap their name on it, and they probably never even tried the spirit. Then you can sort of tell.
Well, I mean, based off of your guys' connections already, right? Living in Montana, growing the product there, and then just moving it to Texas for another state of distribution. You guys are doing it right. And I love to see that you guys are making sure that the states that you're growing in first are the primary states, and then you're building it from there. So I love to see that.
That is super cool.
You know, it's kind of funny. I mean, why Texas as our second state? I mean, you could have chosen anything really, but we were serious when we said, well, the first people who ever came to Montana up from the south on cattle drives came from Texas. So we said, jokingly, we said maybe we should give something back to them. We'll give them
y'all came here.
You guys are a lot nicer than people from. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Casey.
Oh, no, go for it, Brian.
Oh, I was just saying you guys are a lot nicer than us in Colorado. We used to kick the Texans out.
I was going to say, you sent them back. You're like, never mind. Get back over the Rockies.
Yeah.
We do have a few of them out here these days. But, I mean, it was very intentional. And Britt can obviously speak to this as well. How we've been looking at the rollout, especially with, Cole's visibility, we'd have the opportunity to open up as many states as we wanted, liquid allowing, and really do that same, call it allocated dance. We can send 20 cases to all 50 states, and then it becomes a Easter egg hunt. People get frustrated. They hear about something they want to try, and they can't even find it in store.
Yeah.
And so the intent was very much, let's start in Montana, home turf state. Let's make sure we're setting aside enough to know that anybody in Montana, if they go to their liquor store, their bar, their restaurant, they're going to be able to buy some. And then we went to expand to Texas. The mentality was the same, that we want to make sure that we've got enough for these folks. Because I think a lot of us, fans of drinking whiskey are kind of sick about hearing about shit that we can't even buy. So we
Buffalo
wanted to avoid that.
Sorry. Sorry. Sometimes I sneeze, and it sounds like I'm saying Buffalo Trace, but I'm not. It's just a thing that happens to me. Well, actually, so off the back of that, that's actually going into a state like Texas, number one, with such huge distribution. You guys start off with like your first release was 8 years old, but now that you guys talked about how you kind of has existing stock of something, that makes a little bit more sense. But why specifically an 8-year-old? And also, like, did you guys look to any other places for influence? Was there anything that you guys looked to for? Were you looking for a specific profile? I guess just kind of like, what was the impetus behind doing something like an 8-year-old right away?
Yeah, I think part of it was, I mean, as someone who's in the biz, right? I mean, is I wanted it to be able to be under $100, and that was really. I
love that
for me. So like, and look, $100 is still expensive to a lot of people. I don't want to be flippant and pretend like it's not, because it is. But I thought, if it could be something that everybody could, walk in and get a nice shot of at a bar, but also something that you could give as a gift that would be a really meaningful gift to somebody, that you could say, hey, this is, from me to you, not something that everybody can find. And that was really, and so, as you go up in age, as guys all know, your carrying costs go up, your capital requirements go up. I mean, everything goes up. But when we sat down with the liquid guys too, to just kind of go through what we were trying to achieve, we all really felt that we weren't gaining a whole lot more by increasing the age statement. And we thought, I mean, getting some, of course, but we felt, this to us really kind of just seems right. And it was, I mean, actually, you talk about like people involved. It was a bit challenging because Cole was, they were still shooting Yellowstone at the time. So we'd have, a distiller on the phone with him with 20 barrel samples, right? I mean, in little vials, trying to taste him through every single vial, to talk about, well, this was this barrel from this year, and this was this barrel, and so it was a fun process. I mean, we all do this kind of thing now through cameras, and on some levels, I say thank goodness, because I'm not sure they would have let many people on set to go and do what he was doing in his trailer.
That's pretty cool that he was doing that, and also just I don't know if people who listen to our podcast know Cole Hauser, who's a fantastic. My first introduction to him was Dazed and Confused, one of my favorite movies of all time. But he plays Rip Wheeler on Yellowstone, for everybody who may not know that at this point. I'm sure most people fucking do, but just in case anybody does not know that, fantastic TV show, one that I'm catching up on currently right now. So I watch a lot of TV, and I was late to the game, but it's a very good show. So I was very late to the game, so it's an awesome show. It's so cool.
As they say, better late than never. I mean,
right?
I'm telling you, yeah. But that's cool. I like the decision making behind that. I think that's a great approach. As people, us who purchase whiskey, aim, and I think it seems like it is expensive for the casual, but you guys seem to be aiming at the enthusiast, or at least people who appreciate that kind of thing a little bit more, and that's a fantastic approach.
I genuinely thought I seek out less than $100 simply because I've had the opportunity to try things that most things that I've enjoyed the most have been under $100. You know what I mean? Things that I've tried that are more expensive. I'm like, this is really not, I have other things that are way better than this that are less money. So I think the price point makes it easy for people to try something without breaking the bank.
100%.
Well, we wanted something too that people could say, no, I drink Lazy K, right? I mean, like we wanted, and if it's just a novelty item that you find, or that you drink when you can find it, or that is the one-off rare special occasion, that just wasn't. I mean, listen, a lot of people make a lot of money and do very well, and have a lot of great brands and a lot of great products out there. It just wasn't our intention.
I love that.
Well, I mean, with your guys' professionalism alone going across the board, I'm sorry, Casey, for interrupting you. But it's everything that I've seen with what you guys have done through your social media, through your marketing, through your emails, making sure it's publicized in the right way, and then talking about the whiskey and the brand, especially behind the brand, and what you guys actually portrayed was probably one of the highlights of why I tried to connect and bring you guys here today to talk about this and give you guys a little bit more light, because people just don't know you yet. And I think this is something that everybody needs to know.
Well, certainly appreciate it. Casey, you go, but I've got, we appreciate the opportunity for sure.
Yeah, and I was just, speaking to the liquid, a lot of what went into it, the way that I often talk about it is, I feel like to a point, spirits have kind of become like hot sauce was going back, 5, 10, 15 years ago, right? It's how hot can we make it? How aggressive can we be? And, that's great for one. You want to try it, right? When you're at the bar, you're going to try that out. We wanted to have a spirit that people can actually enjoy, right? I can't encourage overconsumption, but you can have a couple of them. You want to have a couple of them, you know what I mean? And that a lot of that magic was in, dialing in that proof. We're at 92 proof. And that to me creates a really good balance of, it's got this great bold flavor. It tells you it's bourbon. It's not messing around, but it mellows out so nice at the tail end. And it's something that, had we taken it to 120 or what have you, it would have just persisted with fire. And we wanted to have something people could enjoy. Yeah. And I was going to mention as well, we got the 8-year statement on there. It is currently a blend of 8, 9, and 10. And a lot of that intent went into, for one thing, consistency, right? It's not 8 years in one day, just so we can put that on there. But it creates our ability to make sure that you buy a bottle today, you buy a bottle a year from now, it's going to taste the same, because we're able to kind of manipulate, year over year. Barrels are different, weather's different, grain's different, and we can make sure that it still has that same flavor
Quality.
characteristic.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
So I think we all have a little bit poured here, right, fellas?
Yeah, I don't know like
Oh.
what you guys. I don't know what your measurement of little is, but like
Well,
I'm
I've got a lot. I poured a lot.
like, like it's different.
So
than
what
mine.
I just thought we could talk about tasting notes. When I first
course.
like on the
Mhm.
nose, I instantly thought of graham cracker, which I'm not one
Yeah.
to get notes. Typically, I'm not good at
But, dude,
giving notes, but
May I, dude? You're getting so good at notes.
I'm getting better.
You're getting
better.
so good at notes. It's insane. You like the last couple episodes, you've been dropping stuff. I'm just like, dude, she's on
Yeah,
it. Like that's
this
so
is
good.
like I thought this was graham crackers,
It's
but
so
I
good.
love hearing what you two, Brian and Martin, what you guys have to say about tasting
Yeah,
notes.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
my favorite
absolutely.
part.
Well, I've written an article about it. I did a full review on this and had to sit down for like a
So
full
tell
day.
us
and-
here what you
Tell us
think.
Yeah, we weren't there
So
then.
you didn't read it yet. Got
I
it.
didn't.
Yeah, whoops.
Yeah,
Sorry.
let me go back to what I think I wrote.
I did
I
actually.
think I said honey and toffee off the nose to start. It's almost like a honey drizzle, and
Yeah.
then some like a toffee texture, like fresh made toffee with it. Is what I think I said with it.
This has
Then
got. I'm curious before you. I don't want you to say it first because if you wrote it down and we lined up, that's really cool. It's got my favorite note, which is like this corn. It's like a cornbread note. It's my favorite note to find in a bourbon. Did you get that
Palate or
one?
nose?
no, I
No?
don't think I put that in there.
Yeah,
But
it's my
you're
favorite.
right. It does
Yeah,
resemble a fresh cornbread.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's my favorite note to find in a bourbon. I find it a lot with Luxro products, but this immediately when I poured it, I'm like, ooh, good. This is my profile right here. Yeah, vanilla. There's like a vanilla like riding in the, but it's not like
Yep.
if I was to eat like vanilla ice cream, it's like vanilla extract.
I was going to say straight vanilla beans.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
What's the
gentlemen.
what's
very
the
good.
mash bill on this, fellas?
I was going to ask.
Or
that too.
can you
Can you
Yeah.
share that?
Yeah.
say the mash bill?
Oh yeah, if you want to share it. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can share
Yeah,
it.
74, 18, 8. So
Got it.
74 corn, 18 rye, 8% malted barley.
Bunch of bottom.
Okay.
Nice.
I think I know now.
And
That's
on
what
the
that light mint note is coming through from the rye for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, and it's fun with that. Oh man, my brain just shut down. Oh, with the tasting notes, I'll often have people say that it tastes like leather. I'm like, well, move the bottle
Yes.
a little further
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
He's like leather and glass. It's like okay.
Yeah, strangest thing, right?
Yeah,
What do
no,
you get
it's
off the palate, Martin?
The bottle is beautiful. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that at all, and Brian
Oh,
show
yeah.
it off a little bit.
what a great bottle.
I mean,
Yes,
the design of this alone, the stippling all the way around it is
Yeah.
killing. Even the cork.
Yeah.
I mean, you could kill
I mean,
someone with this damn
so
thing.
could
You
you?
could.
I mean, could that be a?
So I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you the
decanter?
story. I tell you the
guess.
story because I keep it at my desk. So my son's godmother, as a gift many years ago. I mean, obviously knowing the industry I worked in, she lives in London, and she
Got it.
brought me this Dunhill flask.
Oh, shit.
Those are
it's
so
a
cool, aren't they?
Beautiful.
It was a turn of the century, obviously last century, Dunhill flask. And I was very obsessed of how the metal was flush seamlessly with the leather on top of the glass. And I said, one day I am going to use this as the inspiration for this bourbon I'm going to make. So when you can see it when you put them side by side together,
That's
right?
so
I mean,
awesome, man.
right? It was
Even the colors.
Yeah, even the colors line up.
Well, I mean, like the cork, like the cork topper color, like it's exactly the
this
same.
is a nice
Yeah.
round, and so
Wow.
That's
so
so
it
cool.
really was. I mean, that was a big piece of it, and it's pretty complicated because to get that leather flush on the glass, right, you have to take make a bottle that essentially is indented by the thickness of the leather that's going to go over the top of it. So it was really and then we learn the hard way a lot of times. Putting a branding iron against leather when it's got glass underneath it tends to result in breaking a lot of bottles.
A little precarious, yeah.
Yeah.
A little
we, had, we had to kind of think through that a bit. But in the end, we kind of got this, by trial and error, largely to work. And, so listen, we're happy about it. The thing that we love about it too is I wanted something that nobody else's glass. If it's you're in a dark bar and you're looking at a back bar, that somebody could say, "Yep, that's Lazy K." No matter
that's standing out for sure.
Whatever brands you want to think about, whether that's the blue of Bombay Sapphire or the green of Tanqueray, right. You know what it is. You don't have to see the label, and that's kind of how I thought about what we were doing.
Yeah, it's
that flask is gorgeous.
It's super gorgeous. And gorgeous. My dad had one of those. My parents were Scottish, so he had one of those as well. So I think for me, there are so many brands, and we've talked to a lot of brands, and it's almost every single time that you have a unique bottle style, there was that exact same sentiment. I want it to stick out. I want when somebody walks through a liquor store or at a bar, I know that's what that is. And it's kind of crazy to me that more brands don't do that. I know that sometimes they don't. Maybe they're just trying to get their stuff in a bottle and they're just trying to get it out. And obviously that's admirable and that's like what they do. But like individual, like for people like us, if you are aiming at that more enthusiast, that's what we look for. I can tell you that when I walk into a bar, I've already had my whiskey picked out before I sat down. It's because I've scanned the shelves and I found the bottles that I know. Or I'm like, ooh, that bottle looks interesting. I want to try that. And that speaks volumes to how in tune you guys are with that. And that's really cool.
Somebody gave me a statistic that 85% of purchases are made right at the shelf, right? Yes. So that people don't go in thinking, oh, I've got to go get this. 85% people just decide when they're right at the shelf. So if that's
I can't tell you how many times I've done that.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought if that's the case, man, and this is a world filled with a lot of great brands and a lot of very entrenched brands. We better have something that really is going to stand out, something that people at least will pick it up. You may not buy it the first time. You may have to wait and hear about it on a podcast or go and, read a tasting note or one of Brian's articles. But fundamentally, that second or third time, you may pick it up because you say, you know what, I did read the article and I heard him on the podcast. And wow, that packaging is cool. I want it on. I want one for my bar.
Yeah, I did one of those two things. I didn't read the article yet, but sorry, Brian, I'm joking. I did read the article. No, but it's 100%. You are right, because there's been a lot of times where I've seen something like that's a really cool bottle. I like what I'm seeing, but I do need to know more. I do need to look into it a little bit. But if I'm at a bar, I'm definitely just trying it because I don't care. I'll try just to try it. But if I'm buying, that is a different story. That is a whole different thing. If I'm buying whiskey, especially nowadays, after all of us, I think all of us on this podcast right now probably bought a couple bottles. We're a little more we're a little more discerning at this point. So you do have to look into things. But no, I love that you guys had that thought process behind it, and it pays off because it's an absolutely striking bottle. I love it.
Oh, trust me, this is going up in my ranch.
Yeah, that's one that
after this episode.
Yep. Yeah, that's one that you don't throw away. You know what I mean? You keep.
Oh yeah, you better keep that one.
Keep that one.
Like I said, this is going up on the ranch after this. I'll have to drive up there. I got to put away a few side by sides, anyways.
That was cool. I wish I could say a sentence like that.
Yeah, right. So Britt, you talk about you've been in the industry, you've got some experience. Can you talk a little bit about where your experience comes from first? And then also you have to have lessons and things that you've learned from, quote unquote. Yeah. So I would be curious to hear what some of those things were that maybe you applied to this situation.
Yeah, sure. So like I said, the quick version of it is I was managing nightclubs in New York after I graduated from college and decided this is not going to end very well. I better I think I better do something and get a job. And so I ended up going to the Cornell Hotel School. I wanted to be in hospitality. And that's where I was like, you know what? Food is a really bad business and booze is a really good business. So I decided
You got the right answer.
Food over booze, baby.
this decision is easy. So I ended up going to work. I spent the early part of my career at Bacardi, and
Okay.
I was fortunate enough to be part of the team that acquired Grey Goose back in the day for Bacardi. And
very cool.
And doers.
Yeah, doers.
Yeah, thanks for buying my family.
And then I left in 2007, and I literally did what, probably looking at the list of people that come on your show, I thought I would be the guy in the business that just helps entrepreneurs start new brands and understand what route to market and all those, businessy kind of things are in the U.S. liquor industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that for 11 years. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I joined Gallo, and today I'm the chief commercial officer at Gallo, which most people, of course, think of Gallo and wine, but it's a total alc bev kind of company, right? I mean, you've got everything from High Noon to, I read in one of you guys' profiles, favorite 3 whiskeys is Dalmore 12. Is that you, Brian?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So Gallo is the U.S. importer of Dalmore.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So it's actually quite an interesting portfolio. I mean, it goes from the high end to E&J Brandy, right? And
yes.
E&J Brandy. So, but things I've learned, I think it's a good question. I mean, I really have tried to apply a lot of them. I think number one, in this day and age, one of the biggest things is transparency, right? I mean,
absolutely.
So look, people have been quick to call out, but that brand's not distilled in Montana. And we've said, correct, right? We never said it was. And
right.
We have the aim of getting there. I mean,
of course,
you guys are probably the first time in the media I've said, but I mean, we've actually have distilled a rye,
awesome.
a single source rye that we have put in barrel and laid down, and now just 6 more years or so. And
that's exciting, though.
That's really
exciting.
Cool.
But transparency, we really felt all along the way that I've seen that mistake too many times of people trying
100%.
to play that game. So I think that's one of the things. And then, I mentioned earlier too, just, it was almost like what you guys are saying. Sometimes people thought about their brand name or their packaging as an afterthought because they spent so much money on their beautiful new distillery that they didn't have any money left over to go. And I thought, but this is the piece that touches the actual consumer. So it really is. It's the culmination of a lot of things in my career that have come together. But, the biggest piece I would say of learnings is, and we've applied it all the way through and it's worked out well. Casey, you can back me up on this, but so we just have a no asshole policy. I
love that.
And it's great because the no asshole policy works pretty well. And so as a team, we all get along super well. Nobody.
I just want to point out really quickly that there was an opportunity for a joke there that I didn't take.
Do it now. Take it now. What was it?
Don't let her.
I'm not saying.
No, please.
He says he's got a no
Britt,
asshole policy.
Yeah.
No.
But so this is our group, and we're kind of sticking to it. And that's it. You want to work with people that you enjoy working with, and it doesn't feel like work every day. So
it's that's such a great approach. You guys are if no one's ever even tried, if at this point you're listening to this podcast and you haven't already started to seek out this bourbon, please, can you? For God's sakes, these guys are doing it right. Jesus Christ. Brian, go ahead.
I mean, just based off of everything that you guys are doing, and Britt, I absolutely agree that no asshole policy with your coworkers is something that you should look after and look into. Yeah, we may joke around with each other, but we're not assholes to each other.
No,
we're just
we love
assholes
each
to other
other.
people sometimes.
Yeah.
Because if you, so Casey, let's talk about you as the brand manager, right? Explain a little bit of your role and how you actually got into this. What was the process in building Lazy K Bar Whiskey?
Yeah, so background wise, started on the on-premise behind the stick. Got picked up by a group called Hood River Distillers, who have since sold it, but most known for Pendleton whiskey. And what that brand kind of taught me is that it's possible to punch for the top, because we were relatively small company in Oregon going to war with Crown Royal, who had been the premium Canadian whiskey since forever, right? And being with that brand through a process of, we start beating them in Oregon, and then Oregon and Idaho, and then it starts to expand west. It really kind of showed me the light that it doesn't take a large competitive company in order to actually compete on that national scale. So I was with them for some years and then ended up working with a local distiller here in Montana to try to bring some of those learnings, help them fight those battles on a larger scale. And then, did a few other things in my career, but ended up getting contacted by Britt, and he had mentioned Dave Etter, our CEO, to talk about this project initially. I hadn't obviously heard of it, hadn't been released, wasn't a thing that existed, but they said, hey, we're working on this project, and it's Western lifestyle, it's premium Montana. It's a lot of the things that, to me kind of called to that concept of we're going to fight a battle with the big boys, right? We're not going to go to war with the small batch, the hyper local, those kinds of concepts. We want to find a place on the back bar across the country alongside those leading ultra premium spirits. And a lot of that really, really spoke to me. Now, the funny part was that the mention of Cole Hauser came in a little bit later on. And as we had talked about, celebrity spirits, this day and age, you got to be a little wary, right? To your point, sometimes it's just let's throw somebody at it to make the brand known. They're going to sell this brand for 2 years, and then we're going to flip it to one of the big boys for a bunch of money.
Sure.
And it became really clear really early on that wasn't the intent here. That this is intended as a heritage brand, as a brand that these partners want to stick with for the long haul, and really build something here. And that kind of spoke to me because in the spirits industry, you don't hear that from a lot of people. A lot of it's just turn and burn. A lot of grow and sell it. So that was really compelling. But where we are as a company is kind of an interesting mashup of, especially with Britt's experience and the background of the team at B&J Gallo and Spirit of Gallo. We are internally at Lazy K. It's myself and Blythe and PR that we've met, and Dave. And we're kind of doing the Swiss Army knife, do it all, taking that entrepreneurial approach to it. And it's been a really fun process of applying that best of both worlds approach to it. That we have the backing, we have the resources to be able to operate on a larger level, but still really focusing on the entrepreneurial approach. Like if we got $10 to spend this week, what are we spending it on?
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question, Brian.
No, it absolutely does.
Yeah.
I mean, you're giving a sense of who you are as a character, and as well, not only that, but where each one of you has guided this process, because it does take a team. It can't, if you're doing it by yourself, you're one hell of a person. I don't know a single person that can run an entire whiskey company, do all the marketing, advertising, and everything all in one. I mean, there's no way.
No.
If you are, you're a god. That's all I'm going to say. Or a goddess.
Yeah.
Whoever.
Or a
we're
ninja.
We're going to go with that way.
Yeah.
Stop it.
But no, actually,
Go ahead.
no. So hold on, like off of that though, like, and like what Brian's saying is just like we don't always like as consumers, or even people who like do like what we do, like mildly interview people. Like we don't get to see that decision at that point where you're like what you said, like, yeah, I could sell this for a shitload of money, and then that's it. Who cares? Like we built the brand, then we sold it, and then that's done. But like Brian said, like that integrity that you said, no, this is a heritage brand. Like we want to take this and make it something. Like to me, that's what would get me to 100% back a company. Like the fact that like you sat down, like, yeah, I could do this and bank, but I believe in the product. Then that's like, well, if they do and they turn that down, like, so I believe in the product then too, for sure. And that's when I believe in celebrity brands, is when I see that. And as close as Cole clearly has worked with you guys and things like that, and that it isn't just like simply based off of that. That speaks loud for both of your guys's like the integrity that you guys have, and that speaks so loud in this industry. And I hope you guys know that.
I'm just going to intrude on one thing.
Intrude.
I don't give a fuck if it's a celebrity brand. You guys are doing it correctly. You could be celebrity brand or a Joe Schmo off the street who's doing it the right way. If you're doing it the right way, you're supporting your background, you're finding the right story. That's the way it should be in the industry. Britt, you know this. Casey, you know this. Everybody who's listening understands that process in building a brand or listening to a story of how a brand has been built, and then making sure it grows in a legacy of their choosing. I mean, Britt, you worked for Bacardi. They bought my family. I hate to say that.
You own
all
him,
of them.
technically.
No, shut up.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, you own Brian now. You can tell Brian whatever you want, dude. Like you know what I mean?
God, no. I mean, if you pay me enough, I wouldn't care.
Yeah. Just be like, go buy a bunch of Lazy K, Brian. Like, okay, fine, I have to. Yeah.
Well, the thing to me that was, that was when we started talking about this, Gallo's a family-owned company. They're not sellers, obviously, right? And they weren't going to put their liquid behind somebody that was just going to try to flip it on them, right? I mean, fundamentally, and when we started talking through it, I mean, again, I've got all kinds of projects that in my career that I'm proud of and happy. So this really, everybody talked about it in terms of leaving a legacy. And I mean, what I'd really hope is that one day my kids here in Montana, or Casey, your kids, would come out and say, hey, that's where I want to work. And I'm going to learn it from the ground up. I'm going to go start by learning, what it's like to work on the bottling line, what it's like to work in sales, what it's like to work, I think those are the values that you want to instill if you really want to build a real legacy company. And that's kind of our intention
100%.
here. And that's why too, when people said, well, it's not distilled in Montana, I said, no, but it will be one day. We're going to get there. It's just, we didn't have just, endless capital either to just play against it. So we will earn our way into that.
It is time so we get nerdy. Obviously we get nerdy on this podcast. I don't think we could deny that at this point, but what we'd like to do is deviate a little bit. And when we started,
did that.
we deviated a little bit,
but
it's fine. So we have a question that we want to ask. It sort of sometimes has something to do with whiskey. But when we started this podcast, Adrian likes to collect things, and for some reason she collects stuffed squirrels. And when she collects these stuffed squirrels, she lines them up alphabetically by name, and none of this is true. She doesn't do any of this. So basically, when we first started this podcast, basically we wanted to think of a question that was like so off the wall, that was just like a little random, just to throw things in that's a little different. So we came up with the theme of a squirrel themed question. And I make a different story up of how we got to that every time, and it's usually surrounded by how Adrian got there. So she is going to now ask you a squirrel themed question.
It's my turn to ask
It
the
is your
question this
turn.
week. Yeah. So, if a whiskey loving squirrel, who is also the size of a human, snuck into your barrel room, what kind of mischief might it get into? And what do you imagine it would say about Lazy K Bar whiskey after a few sips? Or would it be a better ranch hand?
Fuck, that's long as shit, dude.
Well, I had to think of something.
I
Man.
didn't write it.
That was
Jesus Christ, dude. The fucking essay, dude. Go ahead.
I've been in a writing mood. Leave me alone.
Yeah. Jesus.
You're doing very well.
It's very
my
good.
friend.
I like it.
It's
But that's
very good.
complicated, dude. That's
mean-
multi-layered.
Should it just be 3 words? I mean, first thing that comes to mind is the human-sized squirrel takes a sip and says, whoa, this is nuts.
Yes, thank God you went there.
Great. I love
That's
that.
perfect.
I mean, that's
I was
I was hoping
first
you'd
thing
do
that came
it
to
so I
mind,
didn't have
no.
to.
I'm so happy it went there.
So
No, that's not
I
bad.
know.
That's perfect.
I
that
love
was a
that.
That's
pretty,
very
it's a pretty intense question. I was going.
Yeah, it got a little
I-
intense.
I-
Yeah, you know what I mean? I agree.
It's always the story.
Casey, top that. Casey, top that.
Casey,
I want to
yeah,
know
top
what.
it.
No,
Casey,
I was
Kasem
hoping
did
you'd do the fun so I didn't have to.
Yeah, well, that's why I
Oh,
put
but-
ranch hand in there too. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
things ranch hands do for puns.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I want to see a squirrel ride a
Right.
fucking.
What a squirrel! Like I
Like
feel like
the
a squirrel would maybe try to take the topper off and put it in its little. Do they have nests? Squirrels? Do they have nests or what do they do?
Yeah, they get the cheek pouch.
They
It'd
have
be
the
heavy on the cheek.
Oh
pouch,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh,
Jeez, think of how much they could pack in each side.
Oh, he just thinks it's a tumor.
Mhm.
Like, it's just-
I wasn't even thinking about nuts. I was thinking about the chew they would be doing if they were on a ranch the whole time.
yeah, that'd be wild.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, there's the ranch hand connection. Big old horseshoe.
A big old horseshoe riding a squirrel riding a horse.
A squirrel riding a horse? What is this?
I'm not sure how I feel
Planet
about
of
that.
Planet of the Squirrels? Like, what shit
Planet
is
of
that?
the Squirrels.
They rode horses.
The planet of stuffed squirrels, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was a random one. Like, that
Sorry.
was-
I know. Every week, I'm like, "What's he gonna say this time?"
I was going
I
to say,
keep
just for your
writing-
audience, they should know that question was not sent in advance. I
Oh
can
no,
assure you.
no. God,
We don't
no.
send those in advance on
God,
purpose.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're also like tame and they're not too wild. But back to whiskey. So another kind whiskey related, but kind of irreverent. So for each of you guys, Casey, Britt, if you could share a glass of Lazy K whiskey with anyone, alive, dead, I think those are the only two options that you can be nowadays. Is
Or
alive or dead.
fictional.
Or fictional. That's the other one.
Yeah.
But they're also dead. So who would you guys choose and why? So who would you choose out of alive, dead, or fictional to share a bottle of Lazy K whiskey with and why?
Casey, you got to go first on that.
Yeah, I mean, especially because I'm in Lazy K mindset, I'd have to say Paul Van Cleef, the guy that founded the ranch, because it
Yes.
takes a special kind of batshit crazy to open a ranch after all the cattle just died and not knowing if it's
Yeah.
going to be the same the next year and the next year. Obviously that generation or that era was pretty exceptional to even be in not even a state, a territory like Montana at the time, all the dangers that came with it. But then to say, I'm going to go into an industry that just died 3 months ago and see what I can do in it, I think is a person I'd like to talk to and get to understand where that crazy comes from.
Yeah. That would be and almost like really cool, like if you could do it and be like, hey, look where this ended up. look
Mhm.
like where all this look where all this came to. Like that's really cool. So
Yeah.
I would
we're
too.
100 years later too. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think that a lot of people around that era, for the most part, didn't have, I guess, legacy in mind. They're just
Yeah.
trying to get by.
Right.
And
Yeah.
now we have these legendary names, your Jim Bridgers, your John Bozeman's, the frontiersmen that are out here. And we have a great connection to one of them in Paul Van Cleve. So that seems like a fun one.
Yeah. You have to do that. Then you have to explain like technology to them. Like, this is an iPhone.
That's right. That's why I
just lights on a social post.
I'm assuming that we could, for mine, we go back in time. They don't come forward. So I'm going back in time, and I think I'm gonna meet Cole's great grandfather and say, by the way, your great grandson's gonna start a whiskey in Montana. Just so you know.
He also does other things, but mainly.
Yes. But this is what's going to happen, and it'll be all his connection will be all back to what you did here.
That's so cool.
But I think just, if you could be, just a bystander. I mean, it really is. I mean, sometimes to be in the original ranch house, and you just kind of imagine like if these walls could talk, I'll just be serving the whiskey around, but I just want to know, what all these conversations were all
just like about. Listening for half a second. They're like, "Are you listening to us?" Like, I am. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I am.
Because I'm allowed to, because Martin gave me permission.
That's right. I did.
No. You should never trust that bald guy. No.
I was going to say, Martin will let you do whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't care.
All right, guys.
Dangerous game, my friend.
It comes down to our last and final question for the evening. Favorite. And this is our favorite question to ask you guys. A little backstory on this. We try to get the history and basis of everybody like yourselves on here, but we also want to know what your favorite whiskey or spirit memory is that you've shared with someone, or that you've just had alone, enjoying a glass in the middle of Montana, hunting some grouse. Yep. What's that one favorite moment?
Hopefully not famous ones.
Yeah, good Google.
Well, I mean, you could shoot it. It's fine. But what's that memory that brings to you that passion, that drive, or what brings up that memory that just sparks the most when you're enjoying a glass?
I have a memory on this one that's very distinct because we talked about the branding, how to brand leather and such, and when you start something, you put something out into the world, you never know exactly how it's going to work out. But our first day with the first cases that we ever had, we were at a bar over in Bozeman, and these guys got so excited about it that they asked Cole if he would actually brand the bar. Literally. No. So Casey, we had a branding iron that was made that was supposed to kind of be just, kind of a showpiece more than anything else. Yeah. Well, meanwhile, Chef goes and puts that thing over the grill. You can imagine that that people have been sampling here. Chef goes, puts that over the grill, gets that thing, piping hot, and comes back in, and there's Cole, stamping it into the bar as if this was like a good idea. No one seemed to think that bars are made of wood, and that immediately the fire alarm was going to go off in this restaurant right before service was about to start. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is not a good start. This is day one. This is not. We are not.
We're starting fires, for God's sake.
If we burn the place down, this is not a good start. Yeah. But it all cleared up, and actually, I have to say that night that I tried to just listen, and I think that's a important quality, is just to listen. And we just heard people at the bar. And, the bartenders were kind of talking about it, just hearing people say, oh my God, that's awesome. Or really you never know. I think when any of these, Brian, several of the guests on the show, I mean, it's a certain level of vulnerability when you put your product out into the world, and you don't know how people are going to react. But just the feedback that we heard initially after not burning the bar down, I thought, okay, if we can just get people to try it, I think they're going to enjoy it. And so that was probably my story of most memorable whiskey story of late.
That's cool.
Well, I appreciate it because that's going into a book.
Yeah.
There's video somewhere, Casey. I can't remember. There's video somewhere of this all going down.
Oh yeah,
Casey,
there's a whole other side story. Well, I was going to say, I'll add to what Britt said there. What was funny was, this is the first time, working with Cole and filming Cole for me personally. And he's used to a world where you do a thing, you get the shot, and then you reset, and then you do it again.
Yep.
And so Cole comes up there with that hot branding iron, and I'm behind the iPhone filming him. And the dude's just holding it there for way too, he's about to burn through that whole bar because he's getting the shot. I'm back there, no, stop. Like, we're done, we're good. But, all's well that ends well. I'd say especially it's connected to this, this project itself, kind of for my involvement came together through Zoom. I live about half an hour away from Britt, so I was able to actually meet him in person, get to know him prior to. But as we're looking at the other partners like David Lucian or like Cole himself, those were phone calls, those were Zoom calls, and kind of to that earlier point and thinking about what's the long-term plan, what's the legacy. You can say a lot of things through a video call, but once you got a few whiskeys in you, you're going to start saying what you're really up to. So early on in the launch, we'd all gotten together at the Lazy K Bar Ranch, and just that opportunity to actually drink this stuff with the partners, with the team, get to know everybody, kind of cut through that initial, call it interview phase, and really get to what are we doing here? What is the plan with this brand? And just the ideas that already start kicking around about this is what we're going to do in year 10, year 20. And it's a really exciting part of the project. And it was a really fun experience to be at the namesake ranch with all the people involved and really getting to the bottom of what are we doing here? What's the plan?
Cole's motto, it's in his email, it's in everything, and it's actually it kind of encapsulated a little bit, and it might sound a little cliche, but he lives it, and that is quality has no finish line. And I think that's one of the things, especially in whiskey making. You guys meet a lot of whiskey makers. We're proud of what we've done here, but we think we can do better. I mean, we think there's ways that we can continue to improve. There's things that we think, are opportunities. And I like that push that he gives because he says it and he lives it. He lives it pretty well. And it's a good reminder for all of us, quite frankly.
Yeah, 100% it is. I think we never stop learning. You never do. We always have that kind of, it's always good to keep that beginner's mindset. You should never feel like you're an expert in anything. You're always learning, and quality follows that. And I love that. I think that's really cool.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Without a doubt, this has probably been one of my favorite recordings that we've had so far, because I'm a good old country boy, and it's hard to find other people that are like myself, that live in the mountains, that like the mountains and country music and good whiskey. So
I knew what you meant by the side by side. I was like, no, it may still be under snow right now, but yeah.
Well, mine has tracks on it. That's the only way I'm getting around the ranch right now. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I really appreciate you guys sending over this amazing bottle, not including that, but the coffee. I'm not saying I drank all of it, but it's gone.
You drank all of it.
Yeah, it's fucking gone.
Yeah,
I even had to horseshoe one of it one night because I had some meetings with some people from another country. So that kept me awake just enough to where I can get on those phone calls. So thank you guys so much for everything that you guys have done. We wish you guys the best on everything. And remember, everybody out there, no matter where you're at, night or day, a bourbon or whiskey with friends can change the world, y'all. Thank you so much. Cheers,
everybody. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
That's it for this episode of Bourbon with Friends. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a review to make it easier for others to find the show. You can also check us out on Instagram at Bwfpodcast. Thanks for listening.